Welcome to another week and our final Red Short for 2022. My name's Bill Schenkelberg. I'm the Managing Director here at Red Sky Alliance, and today I'll be discussing our 2023 cybersecurity expectations and predictions. As always, you can find information on related topics in our website, which is redskyalliance.org, or follow the link in the chat window. In the past several weeks, I asked our analysts their opinions on what they believe would be the most pressing cybersecurity issues for the upcoming year. I told them that you really can't be wrong, as malware used from all levels of hackers is constantly changing. Our job as cybersecurity professionals is to try our best, based upon what we have seen recently, to identify immediate challenges in our profession. So, are we guessing? Or do we use facts and evidence to make our expectations and predictions? Well, I hope the latter, and I hope we can provide that here today. Malware can be enhanced and developed in a relatively short period of time. Examples of malware include viruses, trojans, rootkits, ransomware, and of course, worms. So a hacker recently said on his security blog that quote, "I can show you simple changes to poison ivy that took me no more than a few minutes to develop, which was a very sophisticated and targeted malware. It took 3 to 5 years of a hacking team to get that malware deployed. Poison ivy was then used in a case of a malware attack used by the CCP on its neighbors in Singapore, CCP being China." And then he goes on to say, "Personally, it may take me a few months of trial and error and a great deal of testing on a variety of use cases before declaring a virus to be released from my zoo." So his zoo is his group of hackers. This guy was a black hat hacker, and then he claims that he's now doing white hat work, doing pen testing. So knowing that malware can be quickly developed, as what this hacker said, it just increases the already dangerous environment. We must always remain vigilant as cybersecurity professionals to fight this fast-paced hacking world. In the past several years, here at Red Sky, we've been tracking vessel impersonation, where analysts have seen the various fake entities all along the transportation supply line, and these emails were used to trick various transportation-related businesses and companies into clicking on attachments and thus being infected with malware. Based on our 3+ years of notifying the maritime industry of these issues, especially given how important these indicators are to the supply chain, it's a bit troubling that these issues have not been better resolved and addressed. Implementing more full-bodied security measures around remote access and supply chain have been priorities now for decades, although we have seen that it's been very lacking all along the transportation supply line. The time is now to get serious and address remote access issues and supply chain related attacks. It's only going to get worse. So ransomware. Ransomware attacks are not going away. And why is this? Because really they're so easy to initiate. Ransomware as a service, or RAS, is now being sold on many dark web sites. On the screen, you could see what the Lockbit site was posting and offering to hackers. We saw this rather on the 16th of December. So now even a novice hacker using any number of ransomware tools to attack a company, and with the odds of getting caught very, very low, this attack vector will remain constant for 2023. As we know, ransomware is a type of malware. It blocks access to a system and threatens to publish the proprietary information that is stolen. Ransomware bad guys demand that their victims pay them cash ransoms to unlock systems for the returned information. Ransomware attacks are costly, and they can additionally damage a company's reputation. Often, ransomware can enter into a corporate's network through a channel that is opened with a vendor or supply or a supplier that has a weaker security on their network. That's why we've taken a close look at the supply chain issues. And even now, punk kids, sitting in their parents' basement can hold a small or medium-sized company hostage, where many companies will just pay the ransom to get back to their operations, because time is money for many companies. And for those companies, I guess that goes, the holiday bonuses go out the window. Companies must audit the security measures with their suppliers and vendors to ensure that the end-to-end supply chain is secure. RAS groups continue to be rampant and dangerous. These groups will likely become wider and be using more and more of the ransomware as a service by these threat actors. This as people continue to be squeezed financially by the current economy and thus maybe not be watching as closely as they should to their IT and their networks. Cybercrime is becoming more and more professional. For example, our analysts have seen an increase in as-service business models for malware over the past year. As this approach seems to be more profitable for certain groups that have already implemented these type business ideals, we will see more business-like methodologies for development and distribution of malware. This new professionalism is not good, but it's somewhat expected as these hacking groups get more and more sophisticated. Duping people and ripping them off has been going on for many, many years. Add technology to this art and you have phishing. That's phishing with a PH. All of us have received suspicious emails, or even worse, an email that appears to be legitimate and from a trusted party, but it's not. This is known as phishing. Phishing is a major threat to small, medium, and even large companies with robust cybersecurity programs. This trickery plays on the human element all along the IT process. Humans are often uneducated, they're in a hurry, or they're just outright lazy. These are the people that hackers play upon. Employee training on how to recognize phony emails, report them to IT, and then never open them are simple steps that can be employed to help prevent phishing. IT should always be working with HR to make sure that these cautionary email habits are taught and trained. Common sense is an instinct. Enough of it is genius. I use this saying when I'm teaching, cybersecurity and security professionals, because we all have common sense, although arguably we have it, people have it at varying levels. But use your common sense. If an email looks suspicious, it most likely is. Slow down, check the email, and even if you have to, God forbid, get on the phone and verify the email. Common sense could greatly benefit your company and will likely save your job. Governments move slow. Enterprises move much faster. When the U.S. issued an executive order last year in May to improve the nation's cybersecurity, it was a huge win for companies all across all industries. This is true in many governments, especially in the Western governments. Governments are taking a closer look at cybersecurity issues. The U.S. order stated that the country, quote, faces persistent and increasing sophisticated malicious cyber campaigns that threaten the public sector, the private sector, and ultimately the Americans' people's security and privacy. The federal government must improve its efforts to identify, deter, protect against, detect, and respond to these actions and actors, quote unquote. So these are political words. Policies and regulations, especially surrounding cybersecurity, rarely function as an immediate fix. And this decree this order rather from last year is just words at this point, but it's a starting point. But governments really need to and still need to become more serious about cybersecurity. Government legislation often sets the floor, but not the ceiling in many issues. Government laws and regulations take time to create, pass the laws, and then successfully enforce and prosecute cyber crimes. If you look at how a law is made up on the screen here, you'll see how cumbersome it is to actually get a bill into a law and then add intricacies of the technology within cybersecurity, and you have a very slow process. The enforcement and prosecution is happening right now, but still, in my opinion, just a drop in the bucket. Speaking of underground pseudo criminal services, Recorded Future just recently shared information from Meta regarding the spyware and surveillance for hire as a growing criminal enterprise. These services, and I use that term cautiously, that is, the spyware and surveillance for hire industry is indiscriminately targeting journalists, activists, and political opposition and is growing at a much global scale. In a new report published recently by Meta, it has continued to investigate and take actions against spyware vendors across the world that include China, Russia, Israel, the US, and India, who have targeted people in about 200 countries and territories. Meta was one of the first to publicly challenge the spyware industry back in 2019 when it began legal proceedings against an Israeli firm called NSO Group for hacking into approximately 1,400 WhatsApp user mobile devices. So just a side story here. When I was a director of a Midwestern Fusion Center, and that was about 10 years ago, I was actually introduced to an Israeli company that could take over cell phones. They were looking for an avenue to sell their product within the United States. And they actually did take over a cell phone right in front of us. But after being in law enforcement for over 28 years, I told them that taking over a cell phone operation within the United States equated to a wiretap, which was illegal unless through a Title III federal search warrant. Needless to say, that ended the meeting right then and there. But these type of spyware devices have been in use in other countries since that time when I was first introduced into it. And even some of them have been allegedly connected to various political assassinations. So if your cell phone starts acting up, you may have a problem. Our analysts have seen an increase in malware written in languages such as Go and Rust. So why is this? Well, these languages tend to be written in a way that can be easier to grasp. Easy means and provides a hacker to operate within it more easily. These languages also tend to be more portable in that they can be written once and then compiled for different architectures. So in other words, you can write the program once, compile it for many different architectures, and just put it on one machine, which makes things way much easier. In addition, that alleviates the need to create a language using a Windows version and then transferring it to Linux version and then use it in the ARM version, which are numerous and complicated steps. So using Go and Rust just simplifies that language, and hackers know that, and they've been using that with much success. In 2020, 61% of companies were using some sort of IoT or Internet of Things, and this percentage continues to increase year by year. I read recently that some Chinese products can actually be used as listening devices so the Chinese can gauge our American culture. In other words, they're spying on what we're talking about at home. This may make you look at your toaster a little bit differently. But joking and put joking aside, these IoT devices are a serious issue, and they have been used in listening devices for various countries, specifically Chinese connections. With the expansion of IoT in everyday life, security risk will continue to grow. IoT vendors and creators are notorious for implementing little to no security on their devices, many times trying to get their device out into the market and disregarding, security type issues. So company IT teams can combat this threat by vetting IoT vendors up front and before a purchase, and then resetting IoT security defaults upon purchase. These things can help you protect yourself from any type of an IoT intrusion. With ease in using IoT technology, complacency often sets in. This again, the hackers use to their advantage. So even if you vet a vendor and then employ it within your system, you have to be vigilant to be constantly watching to make sure no one's trying to get in through those IoT devices. And by the way, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, is currently pushing for our Congress to provide more funding and support for efforts to address the cybersecurity protection of medical devices, which many operate within the IoT technology. The number of data compromises has increased drastically since 2005, as demonstrated here on the graph. This chart only indicates compromises for the first half of 2022 and may not indicate a true representation of this entire year. In other words, if you look at the 2021 level, which was at the peak in the past 10 years or so, 2022 is probably going to be very close to it. But this graph only shows the first 6 months of it. So any organization continuing with remote work will only compound current issues with potentially misconfigured environments intended to show API endpoints. Increase in cloud infrastructure technology due to home to work situation, which is the new norm, is going to only compound this issue. And in addition, we're going through economic times right now, poor economic times, and a lot of big organizations like Twitter, Meta, Amazon, HP, Cisco, those layoffs and with the decrease in their resources is going to just add to additional poor security protocols. And this needs to be something that we need to keep an eye on closely. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is going to open up new possibilities for companies in every critical infrastructure sector and industry. Unfortunately, the bad guys know this too. Serious example of data poisoning in AI systems have started to appear in research and various levels of the technology development and industry. In data poisoning, a malicious actor finds a way to inject corrupt data into the AI system that will skew the results of an AI inquiry, potentially returning an AI result to a company and to the decision makers that are false. Think of the potential ramifications for medicine, military systems, or even politics. The recent allegations of voter fraud within the cyber aspects of voting is on the forefront of everyone's mind and could be a result of this data poisoning. The health and safety of our general public is vulnerable and at risk, and this issue must be taken on in a serious manner. One way to protect against it is to continuously monitor your IA results. If you suddenly see a system trending significantly away from what was revealed in the recent past, it's time to take a look at the integrity of your data. 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, released the Resilient Power Best Practices for Critical Facilities and Sites, and the link is up on the screen there. This document supports emergency and continuity IT managers with guidelines, analysis, background material, and references to increase the resiliency of backup and emergency power systems during all durations of power outages. So why do I bring this up? Our electric grid is really vulnerable here in the United States. Computers, computer systems, networks all need electricity. If our power goes down, IT professionals, within companies and businesses need to have backup systems and be aware that if the power does go down, they need to have, backup systems that they can keep their systems operating. This is a serious issue, which is being addressed by our U.S. government and other Western countries too. But having contingency plans to keep your systems operating is really critical. The only way we will overcome the escalating scourge of cyber attacks is to create a united front from business to government and government back to business. Inside business, the IT departments need to work close with the HR folks and with their physical security professionals. This three-pronged approach and sharing of information is really essentially important for the resiliency of any company, which every company relies on, cyber and their IT systems. And in addition, the C-suite needs to take cybersecurity seriously, which we've seen in the past at times they have not taken seriously. We really can't wait for the government to save the day, but we have to on a united front. Until we get everyone working on the same security page, all levels of hacking groups will continue to create havoc. Let's do it for 2023. I'd like to thank everyone here this morning for joining us. I hope that our noted expectations, predictions, and recommendations were insightful and actually useful and helpful. If you have any questions regarding our topic briefed here today, please get in touch with either Jay McKee at redskyalliance.org or myself at bschenkelberg at redskyalliance.org. The year of 2022 is ending in a few days, but our weekly Red Short presentations will continue. So join us in 2023 on January 4th for our next Red Short presentation. We hope that everyone here has a great New Year's Eve, and a great 2023. We hope to see you next year, and we will continue to providing our services and Red Shorts in the future. Take care and Happy New Year.